10 years ago, Samsung released a trailer of a concept folding smartphone. It was completely CGI. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Like, there was no way on earth that it was actually going to happen. And yet, I'm sitting here right now holding a smartphone that is that, but even better. And so, it's got me thinking, what's next? So, I've scoured the web, pouring through company documents, research, and patents that they filed to bring you the 7 coolest future smartphones that we know companies are actually working on behind the scenes. So, number 7. You've all seen foldable phones right now. They're all kind of the same from the outside. But what about 5 years down the line? Well, Oppo thinks that they have the answer with the slide phone. It's still a foldable, but instead of being split into 2 sections, this thing is split into 8. And because the screen is flexible, you can fold it along any one of those sections. You can tell Oppo's put a lot of thought into this. They've even turned their rough patents into an actual trailer. And you can see in that trailer how it's barely larger than a credit card when completely folded, how if you unfold, say, 2 sections, you can display a clock. If you unfold some more, it makes the cameras face the front so you can take selfies, and then how, when it's completely unfolded, it is wide enough to be able to do 3 separate tasks at once. I do have concerns, like the fact that, yes, displays, they are flexible, but batteries aren't. Are you going to split the battery into 8 separate miniature segments? But I do rate Oppo for the out-the-box thinking, and I actually do think there's a reasonable chance that something like this does come to market in a few years. Now, another company that's almost famous for their out-the-box thinking is Huawei. And over the last 10 years, one of their key focus areas has been screen curvature. Their flagship phones were originally completely flat. They then made them curved. They then made them super curved with their waterfall display technology. And I've now found out that they're also testing the idea of an all-round 270-degree curve, paired with an underscreen selfie camera to make the entire panel uninterrupted. It's called the Arc display. And while I do get the concern of accidental screen touches on these sides, if the company figures out how to eliminate them with intelligent software, I think the concept has enormous potential. With the right quality of vibration motor, you can make digital buttons simulate the feeling of physical buttons. And the benefit of them being digital is that they can change based on the app that you're in. You could have media and volume controls while you're watching videos, you could have shoulder buttons while you're playing games, you could have your notifications while the phone is on standby. The only slight killjoy here is the fact that this whole Arc display thing is Huawei's patent. And because the US ban has made it almost impossible for this company to do anything, we gotta wait for someone else to buy the patent before we can see anything come of it. But it gets crazier, because behind closed doors, Samsung is working on a transparent phone. I mean, companies have been trying to figure out this concept for, no joke, decades at this point. But just a couple of years ago, Samsung filed for a patent that not just described what their transparent phone would look like, but also how it would work. They documented how they would use a transparent luminous panel that would have pixels just as bright as their normal screens, but ones that go invisible when they're off. And bear in mind, companies have now developed practically transparent batteries and transparent cabling, which would be able to create a completely see-through middle section of a phone. The point is, this completely wild idea is actually plausible now. But I don't think we'll ever see one on store shelves, for the simple fact that transparency is a gimmick. It doesn't really have any benefit apart from looking cool, and gimmicks don't sell phones. Because smartphones are such expensive items, and because people tend to only buy one of them, which they'll need to rely on to access their entire digital lives, it's not the kind of product where you want to compromise just to have a more unique looking one. And compromise, you would have to. To go for a transparent phone, you'd have to have a lower capacity battery, much smaller camera sensors, antennae in less optimal positions. There is so much that would have to be nerfed. But I can't be the only one who still kind of wants one. It's almost like the hand on the other side is saying something. Subscribe. Hey, Samsung asked, not me. So how do you top that then? Well, it's time to turn to Vivo. Over the last decade, this company has kind of built a reputation for just going to the absolute extreme. They made the world's thinnest smartphone, the world's first full-screen smartphone, the world's most stabilized camera on a smartphone. And now, if we look at their patents, they're playing with the idea of a drone camera smartphone. allow me to drone on. So you'd have your phone, and then with the press of a button, that phone will eject a tray from which a tiny little drone launches, and that drone is basically your camera. It could follow you around and capture everything that you see. It could whip around in front of you and take a shot of you and everyone else that you're with. You can see why this idea has sent people into a bit of a frenzy, with over 15 million views on a wordless video that only teases a render of it. However, it's a really dumb idea. And for Vivo's own sake, I kind of hope that they scrap it before it reaches production. Mainly because it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. All you need to do to take a photo right now is to hold your arm out and click a button. But introducing a drone into the mix, it creates like 50 new variables. You'd all of a sudden have to start factoring in a second battery that needs constantly topping up, propellers that get stuck, wind direction, getting it stuck in a tree. The list goes on, and you can pretty much replicate the functionality of this drone by just asking someone else to take the photo. But for a future camera system that is not just cool but also useful, I found a fascinating project that Huawei is working on. Just a few months ago, Huawei patented a 3D scanning camera system, which features a screen in the middle to act as a mirror of sorts, and that's flanked by 3 cameras, which are far enough apart from each other to be able to create a 3D model of your face and your skin. It is super weird. The company's filed a 43-page document all about how it will be able to tell you everything from how well you've applied your sunscreen, to whether you've actually removed your makeup properly, to even the texture of your skin, your pores, your spots, your wrinkles, and how to actually improve them. I'm struggling to imagine queuing up to buy something that's just gonna tell me how ugly I am, but it is yet another reminder of how capable our phones could be in just a few years. Alright, just before number 1 then, it's time for a device that has been talked about for years. Piles of papers and patents and rumors have talked about a foldable iPhone in the future. And turns out we have basically confirmation that Apple has actually built 2 working prototypes internally. One book-style foldable, similar to Samsung's Z Fold series, and one clamshell foldable, like Samsung's Z Flip series. And what the analysts are saying is that between the two, Apple prefers the clamshell. And if we look at Apple's other documentation, it shows how they're considering using sapphire for a crack-resistant display, how they're planning to make a hinge that doesn't leave a crease behind when unfolded, and as much as this does sound like hearsay, I actually think if by the end of this year we see that the foldable market has grown yet again, that Apple will commit to a clamshell foldable iPhone. If the demand keeps growing, they'll kind of have to, but also that they won't release it until they can do it the Apple way. Like, they're never going to be the first company to release new experimental tech just because it's cool. When Apple sells a phone, they need to make absolute sure that it's ready for the mass market. And so they will wait until there's no glaring reliability issues, and also until there's a very clear purpose for having a foldable phone for a mainstream user. And both of those things point towards a 2025 launch alongside the iPhone 17 lineup. Okay, are you ready for the weirdest mobile you've ever seen in your life? This is Samsung's Tetris phone. No prizes for guessing where that name came from, but it's actually a surprisingly good idea. So basically one big screen on the front, just like a normal phone, except at the top, that screen goes much wider and bends around the back. And there's a lot of companies who've played with this idea of a second screen on the back of their phones, because it can be super useful for notifications or taking photos with your camera, but in the past, they've either been too low quality to see clearly, too small to be able to do anything that useful on, or so large that the phone itself becomes impractical to use. But this is like the perfect middle ground. And because the back display is part of the front display, you get the exact same high-resolution, high-quality panel all the way around. The screen stops partway down the phone, so you still have a place to naturally rest your fingers without touching it. And you can even use this bit of screen on the side as an interactive notification bar. In Samsung's patent, they did also show the back screen being able to kind of flip out to the front, but to be honest, I don't think you need that. If they released this phone as it is right here, I think it would be a winner. In other news, just last week, my email account was compromised. Turns out that one of the sites I'd signed into had a data breach, and my passwords, alongside like hundreds of thousands of other people's, were ejected into the public space. And this could have been a major problem if it weren't for the Surfshark alert feature. This effectively monitors all the sites that you have accounts with, and the moment that it detects a vulnerability, lets you know, so you can actually do something about it. And Surfshark Alert is just one small part of the total Surfshark package, which gives you a high-speed, unlimited use of VPN, the simplest, lightest antivirus I've ever used, and a secure internet search that's not just private, but also ad-free. And the craziest part of this is that this whole Surfshark package together is not $10 a month or even $5 a month, it is $249, which, split between the 7 people that I share it with, literally works out to 36 cents. So give it a go, and if you hit the link in the description and use the code BOSS, you'll get it not just for that $249 a month price, but also 3 extra months for free on top of that. Fully refundable if you don't like it. To find out who's winning between Android and iOS in 2022, that video's here, and I'll see you there.